For generations, people have struggled to understand the possibilities of future technologies. Science fiction writers have seen their fiction become a reality, as evidenced by NASA's development of a warp-speed spacecraft. The art of expression has evolved from pen and paper to an electronic platform. Airport security has changed dramatically from the lessons learned after September 11th. At the same time, current events like the Ferguson shooting and aftermath reflect the evolving attitudes of law enforcement in our diversifying nation. The ease of compact electronic devices advances the rapidly growing field of media technology, and Google Glass may be the first indication of the inevitability of bioimplants. While nursing programs implement technology as part of a modern curriculum, seasoned nurses are forced to adapt or find new jobs. Healthcare is improved by new technologies, but has it removed the personal touch that has always distinguished nursing as a profession? Let's explore the perception of the future from various generations who have shared their thoughts. Hi, I'm Catherine Kelly, and welcome to Generations. Today on Generations, we'll be talking about the future. Our first segment deals with the future of art and self-expression. And our guest is Katie Dempsey, who is Director of Community Arts at Morris Arts. And welcome, Katie.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about what it means to be Director of Arts and Community. What do you do?
Well, from day to day, it's different. Primarily what I do is work as an advocate to help artists of all disciplines, all kinds of backgrounds, to come together amongst themselves and to actually start to feel like they are a community. Sometimes artists isolate themselves and don't think there's an artist anywhere else for miles, and sometimes they're very surprised to find that the person in the next apartment is an artist, and there's artists all over the place. So first and foremost, it's really creating a sense of community with those people that are artists in the community, and also creating venues and possibilities and places and spaces where those artists can come and do what they do best, which is their art.
That's amazing. We have a video that explains, people explaining about their own self-expression, and I think it fits right into what you do.
Sounds great.
We're going to take a look at that video right now. How people express themselves gives us insight into who they are. The evolution of self-expression is grounded in personal explorations as well as agreed upon generational norms. From performance art to fashion, from music to graphic novels, trends can only be understood once we see the whole, not just the parts. Can we understand future trends from what we know about the past? What might those future trends be? Let's explore the possibilities.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm 16 from Australia.
Hi, my name is Angie. I'm 49 years old.
Hi, my name is Fred De La Rosa, and I am 23 years old.
Hi, my name is Josh Axelrod. I'm 22.
Hello, my name is Helen. I'm 39 years old. I like to express myself in the form of the clothes I wear. I like to go a little bit vintage looking, 40s, 50s. I probably don't think it will ever change. I've always liked to dress a little bit differently. And I don't think I'll ever go mainstream.
So I like expressing myself through images and seeing how they move through my artistic views and imagination.
I like to express myself verbally. You know, I grew up in a generation where we talked over the phone, we talked with our friends, family. I mean, it was just basically the primary way we communicated.
I am an aerial artist, so I like to do silks and trapeze to express myself. I think it really helps people to see, like, it helps people to get in touch with their feelings, and I think it's just something really beautiful to watch and to really explore. I I think that art touches people, and I think that's why I do, and I think that's how it'll make a difference in the world.
I express myself through writing. I just always felt better expressing myself through the written word than the spoken. I don't know why. Both my parents are writers, I guess, so it's kind of in my blood. It's just something I've always done and will probably always continue to do. I really just don't see that changing anytime soon because it's my main and probably most lucrative skill. So it's something I'll be doing for a long time.
My name is Allie and I'm 11 years old.
Hi, my name's Mark. I'm 44.
Hi, my name is Madeline. I'm 75 years old.
Hi, my name's Ed. I'm 22 years old.
My name's Victor Wong, and to express myself, I write. I write to myself for me to read later in the future, so I get to reflect on what I did in my past couple weeks or past couple years, to reflect upon whether or not I improved myself or I just stay the same.
And I like to express myself through drawing. I've always liked to draw. Ever since I learned to ever since I learned what a pencil was basically. And I've always drawn, like when I'm bored, sad, happy, anytime.
I like to express myself with the clothes I wear and how I look. It'll vary over the years, I think. My taste changed slightly, but it's more or less the same, and I think it could remain more or less the same.
I like to express myself by crocheting and county cross stitch, making pictures. Unfortunately, I can no longer do it because my eyesight is fading. So now I love to go out into my yard and keep beautiful flower gardens to help and grow beautiful roses because they make me feel happy and comfortable.
I do to express myself. I write mainly about politics, or at least political theory. So, and I do that in efforts of developing my own political philosophy, and down the line the idea is to implement it into the real world. And so I'm hoping that I can change the world through my political philosophy.
Hi, my name is George. I'm 27 years old.
Hi, my name is Hader. I'm 22 years old.
Hi, my name is Gordy. I'm 18 years old.
Hi, my name is Ashley and I'm 25 years old.
Hi, I'm Zoe. I'm 11 years old. I like to express myself by singing because I feel like I can get lost into another world while I'm singing. Whenever I'm bored, I like to sing or just play on my piano.
I like to express myself by playing the tuba. It's a nice change of pace for me. I actually am a lawyer by trade, but I do this on the weekends, and it's just something I get to do that's totally different from my career.
I express myself through the music I listen to, through basketball, because I love basketball, so whenever I'm playing basketball, it's a little bit, I kind of take out some of my stress, and I also express myself through my tattoos.
I like to express myself through photography and video editing. It brings out my creative side, and it lets me lets my mind kind of flow free and do whatever I want to do in my own free world, really. I like to photograph weddings, and as well as weddings, I like to photograph and videotape surfing, snowboarding, and skating.
I express myself by playing the acoustic guitar whenever I can. I learned it when I was bored in college, and I didn't feel like I had an outlet. So I started playing there in the dorm room, and then ever since I've used it as a tactic to express myself further.
So if I had to pick one place that people could just all express themselves and come together, you know, I don't know exactly what that place would be, but I know that when you get there, it'd really be a kind of place where people of all generations, all walks of life could just get to know each other, because once you're able to just let loose and just do whatever it is you want to do, it just breaks down barriers and lets people actually communicate with each other.
Hi, welcome back. And Katie, That video was amazing. I think what I got out of it is that all of us, regardless of whether we're artists or not, need to have a venue to express ourselves. And that's what your job does.
That's so true. It was just great watching the clip and seeing so many different kinds of people, ages, and the gentleman at the end who had the tuba actually was pretty much talking about creative placemaking, which is a very popular word over the last maybe 3 or 4 years. And creative placemaking is just what it sounds like. It's creating a place in communities for people to be creative.
So even him playing the tuba, so he could go stand someplace,
right,
and it'd be perfectly acceptable for him just to start playing the tuba.
Exactly, exactly. And you know, the more towns and municipalities and even planners and developers start to understand how the human spirit, what it needs to feel alive and healthy, there's a whole younger generation of planners and architects that are really taking to heart some of these very things that when they're developing or building a space, they need to make sure that they're incorporating spaces where things can happen.
So like rather than hiring a known welder or an artist of sorts that has some notoriety to create a sculpture in a square,
right,
we would have these creative spaces for people just like you and me to go and
exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Exactly. And it's really the concept is, you know, I like to think of it as taking the art out of the museum and bringing it to the street, or even taking performance out of the typical performance venues of concert halls and bringing them onto the street. So it really kind of crosses boundaries, socioeconomic boundaries, where people that may not be able to afford to go to a theater or a classical concert really have access to the same things that we all would like to do. They can just come out and hear somebody play a violin, or they can see somebody do some kind of performance art, and it's free.
You and I were talking earlier about people wanting to express themselves and sometimes being stifled because they get stuck on the word art or an artist. But you were telling me that creativity comes in so many different forms. So tell us a little bit about you know, how that works.
Well, it's so true, because I think the word art can be intimidating to people. And sometimes, especially in past generations, there was a very limited idea of what art was. If you were able to paint a portrait, you were an artist. Right. If you were a classical pianist, you were an artist. But there was very little in between. Maybe if you were an actor, you were an artist, or a dancer. But today, this generation, and it's been happening slowly, have really started to express themselves in many, many different ways that maybe people of my generation were never encouraged to express themselves. For instance, some of the events that I do, I always call the hula hoopers, because you may not think of them as artists, but we have a whole group of people that come together as hula hoopers, and some of them have hula hoops that light up in the night, and they've been working on routines, and some of them do yoga, stand on their head while they're doing hula hoops, and it's so engaging, and it's so interesting, and it's such a beautiful thing to watch. And there's something that no one would ever think of as, as an artistic practice.
Now, what are these? Are they squares? Are they defined areas? How are they? What do they look like? Like if I was walking down the street in Morristown, how would I know that I stumbled upon a creative space?
Well, it can be any space, which is the beauty of it. You know, something as simple as, for instance, the sidewalks in Morristown. Sometimes living in a town like Morristown that is actually well developed and not a lot of vacant space, you know, you have to do things like get permits from the town, which are something artists maybe
wouldn't do.
Know who to go to.
Right.
So my job is going before the town council, making a presentation and saying we would like to do on the last Thursdays of the month during the summer on all the sidewalks downtown, have artists come and sell their work, have dancers come out and perform, have musicians bring their, and get that kind of a permit.
Okay, so it's just a seasonal thing, but it is organized. It's not just people can come out and
Well, usually
do
it
whatever.
depends on the city and the town. Some towns that are a little more developed have ordinances, but really it's, we have a green in Morristown, and people just naturally kind of come there at night and bring their instruments, bring their hula hoops. There's actually a gentleman who eats fire and juggles
Wow,
fire.
it's a
So
different form of art.
yeah, and there's also drumming, which people kind of just start setting up drumming circles.
Do you feel that this self-expression is able to bridge the gap of the generations? Do you see some similarities between the different generations wanting to express themselves?
Yes, and I think that if you do a good job at creative placemaking and you really come up with a concept for a venue or an event that is all-inclusive. And that's what I try to do when I'm creating events. I try to come up with a very simple event that kind of takes on a life of its own.
That's amazing.
And I do believe that you know, when you bring together older generations with the younger generation, and you kind of respect each other, magic really happens.
Thank you so much for that, Katie. That's amazing. We'll be back right after this. Hello?
Grandma, something happened last night. I'm in trouble and I need your help.
Oh no, dear, what happened? You don't sound like yourself.
I was in a car accident and my nose is broken.
I'd do anything for you, honey. How can I help?
I need $3,000 to pay for a lawyer and to pay for my hospital costs. The money needs to be wired immediately, but please don't tell Mom and Dad.
Just to be safe, please tell me the family code word so I know it's really you.
Welcome back to Generations. In this segment, we're going to be discussing the future of law enforcement. And our guest is Dr. William Solomons. You're a professor of criminal justice, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
I spent 26 years in law enforcement. I retired about 3 years ago from the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office. I spent about 20 years there. While I was there, I worked in a bunch of different units, the sex crimes unit, the child abuse unit, the major crimes unit, the crime scene unit, and about 10 years at the police academy training police recruits and current police officers.
What an amazing career.
Thank you.
We are going to take a look at a video we have right now, and the video is going to talk about people on the streets and what their opinion about law enforcement is. Law enforcement's power in society has evolved to include high-tech advancements. At the same time, it attempts to balance the subtlety of community relations. However, their adaptation alters the moral system which governs them. Although individual opinions may differ by generation, new ethics provoke questions about law enforcement's ability to change with the cultural attitudes and a diversifying nation. Law enforcement's change is undeniable, but is it moving in the right direction?
Hi, I'm Zay. I'm 27 years old.
My name is Veronica McCloskey and I'm 14 years old.
My name is Jim Morgan. I'm 80 years old.
My name is Carlene and I'm 6.
My name is Anthony Espinosa. I am 25 years old.
My name is Gianna. I am 6 years old.
So I'm Nancy Higgins. I'm 49. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and where I think the future of law enforcement is headed is, hopefully anyway, with more civilian input and oversight. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, so I'm right in the neighborhood where the Ferguson events have unfolded, and there's no question it was a matter of time before it was going to happen. I don't think many of us were very surprised by the events that unfolded. Unfortunately, it's continuing. On the violent side, I'd like to see more civil discourse, but I think that it's headed in the community getting more involved with oversight and holding law enforcement accountable.
My name is John Christensen, 69 years old. I was asked a question about where I think law enforcement is going. Well, I think law enforcement is doing an okay job right now. Of course, you got the few few people in law enforcement that take advantage of the situation. But for all in all, I think law enforcement is doing a good job. And I guess in the future, we'll see a lot more technology coming from them.
Hi, my name is Justin Norwicki. I'm 18 years old, and my opinion with where law enforcement going is that it's basically going to hell in a handbasket, because you see people targeting certain races just because.
I don't know where law enforcement is headed, but I think that with advances in technology, there's going to be a greater ability for the enforcement of law and the officers who enforce the law to better facilitate all the policies and procedures that are out there, and have them be visible and transparent and known within the community, and that the community then can better provide feedback and ensure that they're actually relevant and having the impact that we want them to have for a greater society.
Hi, I'm Alex Weisselman. I'm 57. I think law enforcement is heading in a very positive direction. I think behind everything, they're doing the proper thing.
Well, if somebody's hurt, they're always around and they help.
There's a very strong white population where we have the 10 black kids in our school are always getting tickets, always getting harassed, and that's just where it's going. It's not going to change. People think it's going to change, it's not.
Hi, I'm Hayley. I'm 30 years old. I don't know where law enforcement will be headed, but I believe with the technology we have and social media, we're definitely heading in a direction of more transparency and accountability. So I would hope that the connection between the community and law enforcement can strengthen through those things.
And I do think that law enforcement does have a benefit to society, because you really need someone to put need to keep things going, keep it straight. You need someone to put a foot down and tell you this is what's gonna happen.
My name is Kelly. I am 22, and my view on law enforcement is they need some slight improvements. I think that where we're going with technology and where we're going in social media and the knowledge of everyone is we need to watch what they're doing a little bit more. And everyone has a good cop, bad cop opinion. I don't have that so much. I think we should each put a GoPro on them or something to watch what they're doing, so we don't have a biased opinion according to what the officers are saying, and we can just know exactly what the facts are.
I think that the growth or development of people, citizens understanding that they can affect the way law enforcement is carried out, which has certainly begun, I think, in what's been going on in Ferguson, Missouri, in connection with Michael Brown's murder, is that people are going to demand that they have more of a voice in law enforcement.
Although I think the biggest issue is that media is painting them in a very, very difficult light. I think they're taking them apart and using the real climatic things and using that in the media to show them in a very non-positive way. They're picking a lot of the mistakes they do and putting them under a microscope. And I don't think it shines very reflectively, but I think they, all in all, are really still trying to help us. And unfortunately, we're not always seeing that. I think we should look more at them as very helpful and positive in the future.
They send bad guys to jail.
I don't think the people involved in law enforcement are intrinsically bad people. They just need to be given some correction.
Well, if you look at the media, it depends on who controls the media. So if let's say if a government decides to control the media, then it's law enforcement. They can do whatever they want. But if like I said, if you got a camera like this and you become a reporter and you decide to check things out and be unbiased and fair, then the media will report everything that's going on fairly and just. So the media can have a good impact and it can have a bad impact.
My name is Stephanie Pulaski. I'm 48 years old, and I feel that the police enforcement is getting towards more technology driven and more world safety driven instead of just locally driven.
Hi, my name is Lisa Hamilton and my age is 46, and I would say that law enforcement in the future is going to have to focus a little bit more on, I guess, the terrorism and racial issues. Thanks.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay.
See ya.
So, Bill, why do you think there's such a huge divergence, as we saw, of opinion on law enforcement across the generations?
Yeah, you really saw it in the video that between the very young girls and the elderly people that were interviewed. And that really is a microcosm of society. If you look at the younger kids and how they form their opinions, it's generally based on their parents. If the parents have a positive, belief in the police, then they'll reflect that. And that in their school. You know, the teachers are talking about the police and how they're there to help you, and they get dare. As you get older, your peers become more of an influence. As you saw with Justin, he has friends that are stopped. He knows his friends are good people.
Right.
He doesn't see any reason why they're being stopped. So he kind of takes on that attitude of negativity towards the police, identifying with his friends. And then you go to the older generation who grew up in a different time, where respect for authority was important, and they tended to give the police the benefit of the doubt, understanding that they're bad police officers, just like any profession. But we need to sort of look and see if there's actually something there that needs to be addressed or not.
Do you think, well, we know it's more than generational, it's also geographical.
Oh, absolutely. As you go to different communities, is the department representative of the community? And a perfect example of that is Ferguson. It's whatever happens there, there's no doubt that you have a 50-plus man department, and you have 3 members of the department that are African American, where the community is a very high percentage of African American citizens. So, that's a difficult thing to overcome for a chief of police.
And this gets us to the question of diversification. So why do you think that there's such a difficulty in having departments diversified to match the community?
It's really something that departments have struggled with for years, and I would find it hard to believe that you could find police chiefs that could honestly say, my agency, my department represents the community in terms of the cultural diversity of the community.
Is this across the board?
It really is. I mean, unless you have a community that's predominantly white, you really can't say that. And most communities are not made up that way. And departments have struggled for years to try and recruit. It's not like they're not trying. They're trying very hard to recruit minorities and females. It's just, the problem is it's not, for those kids, if you have friends that are stopped, Justin doesn't see law enforcement as a viable career.
Right, exactly.
Where some of the female teenagers, sort of the benefit of the doubt. So you may be able to recruit them at some point because they don't have that negative opinion. But if you don't see law enforcement as a viable career when you're young, it's not something you even think about. And they don't look into that as a possible career. And
obviously this diversification truly affects how law enforcement is carried out, right?
If you don't represent the community and the community doesn't respect you and believe you represent them, then it's gonna be difficult to develop that relationship. And without that relationship, you really have a tough time addressing the mandate that you have to protect and serve that community.
Right. How can I, as a civilian, improve the way law enforcement is seen and act? I mean, can we actually have some sort of an impact on law enforcement?
I don't think there's a chief or department head anywhere that would say, I don't want the impact of the influence of the community. I don't want the community to not have a say in what happens in my department. So being active in your community and taking a role and understanding what the police are doing and trying to understand what they're trying to accomplish and what tools they're using to try to accomplish it, I think is important. And also seeing things from different perspectives. We ask our police officers to see things from a different perspective. One of the best traits of a police officer is empathy, being able to put yourself in the shoes of someone you're serving. If you can't do that as an officer, the community can't do that, then what can you do? It's an uphill battle that you'll never overcome.
Right. How do you feel, you talked about tools. Now we have a lot of tools at our disposal now, and with technology, how do you think that technology is changing the way that police officers enforce the law?
Technology's always been important to law enforcement. They always seem to be on the cutting edge of technology, whether it's something that comes over from the military, as we kind of see now, or just technology in general. They will always embrace it if it serves a purpose and they can find the money to pay for it. The question is, at what point does technology, some forms of technology, cross the line into the violation of constitutional
Right,
rights. You know, you talk about
exactly.
drones, you talk about license plate readers and things like that. You know, these are areas where the courts will have to look at or have looked at whether or not law enforcement is crossing the line.
What do you think the experiences of, or the extent of experience that you've had, what kind of lessons have you learned from your experiences as far as law enforcement?
Well, I think, you know, having worked in so many different units has exposed me to different types of victims. So I saw perspectives from different victims. So that helps. As far as what Justin said in terms of the profiling of African Americans, I perhaps wouldn't have necessarily agreed with that. But in terms of an experience, I have a brother, my youngest brother is African American, and it wasn't until he became driving age and started driving, I knew what kind of person he was, that he would be stopped constantly.
Oh.
And so I said, well, maybe this is really happening. I mean, I wasn't doing it, and I wasn't seeing other people doing it, but it wasn't until I had the personal experience of knowing someone that it was happening to, much like Justin, to say, yeah, maybe this is happening, and maybe we need to address this issue.
There's obviously, we're going to go back to drones for a second, there's obviously a line between safety and intrusion. Do you think that we cross that line with the use of drones?
Well, it depends. We're pretty far removed from 9/11. Certainly terrorism is still out there, and from the terrorism standpoint, if the department can justify the use of it based on that, then the public may embrace it a little bit better. You know, they have, some departments have helicopters, and they have the right to the airspace to fly overhead. The courts have said that's okay. Now, drones are different. Drones are smaller, they're more mobile, they're less noisy. So a helicopter overhead, you hear it, and you say, well, maybe somebody's looking at me. So you understand that you've reduced your privacy expectation.
Right.
Where it's going to go, I would assume that drones will be embraced by law enforcement. It addresses concerns in the law enforcement community that can't be addressed otherwise in a much more safer manner. But where the courts are going to see in terms of the use of drones, what their ruling is going to be, who knows? That's something we'll see down the road.
That's amazing, Bill. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back right after this.
Bob's Used Cars?
Hey Andy, how you doing?
All right.
What can we do for you?
Yeah, I'm looking to see the car in this ad.
That one we just sold this morning, but we have some other great cars here.
Yeah, but look at these prices. Those are ridiculous.
You gotta pay for convenience.
What? You gotta walk away from a bad deal. I knew I should have checked with the Division of Consumer Affairs first.
Hi, and welcome back to Generations. This segment, we're going to be discussing the future of healthcare, and our guest is Terry Christopher. Terry's been a nurse practitioner for the past 10 years, and you are a doctoral candidate at Rutgers University in Newark.
That's correct.
Welcome, Terry.
Hi.
Thanks for being with us, and just wanted to know, what was it like being a nurse practitioner? What did you do?
Well, I worked at a state psychiatric hospital on an interdisciplinary healthcare team caring for patients with chronic mental illness and the discharge-resistant patient.
Oh my goodness. We have a video that we asked people on the street what they thought, where they thought the future of healthcare as far as technology was going, and we're going to take a look at that video right now.
Okay.
Technology has improved healthcare, yet it's made it less personal. It's taken nurses away from the bedside, but it also allows them the opportunity to overcome more adverse situations. Machines designed to administer medications let nurses attend to other tasks. The internet allows easier access to answers for diagnosis. Nursing education offers technology-based practical learning. But while this has paved the way for a new generation of nurses, veteran nurses are being forced to adapt to the changes.
Hi, my name is Mark Morrison. I'm 65.
Hi, my name is Deborah Franco-Macaro, and I'm 56 years old.
Hello, my name is Dennis Allen. I'm 57 years old.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Foote, and I'm 37 years old.
Hi,
I'm Linda Galt, and I'm 72 years old.
Hi, my name is Jessica Skorupski, and I'm 39 years old. I think the future of healthcare is really exciting.
I'm going to talk about what I think is going to happen in the future for the healthcare in this country and technology. I think what's going to, I personally think what's going to happen is, you know, there's already Skype, so we could see each other through, like, you know, FaceTime on iPhones and, you know, tablets and, you know, the internet, laptops, things like that. So I think what's going to happen is not only can we interview with doctors, we won't even have to leave our houses to like interview with doctors. I think what's going to happen is they're going to come up with some type of device that can scan our, you know, our insides and tell us, like, you know, what's going on.
I envision a medical device that people who need liver transplants and need their blood cleansed, instead of having to sit in a room and have it filtered, we'll be able to carry a backpack or some type of device where the process will be done as they go about their normal business day or normal life until a live transplant can be obtained.
I believe in the future that if a couple wants to have a baby, they'd be able to pick the sex of the child, and also that if there was a genetic defect, that they'd be able to handle that prior to the birth of the baby, and if there's cancer genes in the child prior to birth, they would be able to eradicate that before the child's birth. I also believe that in the future, that if a child is born to a mother that is a drug addict or a heroin addict, that baby also would be able to be treated prior to the birth.
My view of the future of healthcare is that way back in the day, when doctors used to carry a black bag, they used to be able to go to patient to patient, house to house, do their exams. And I feel that in the future, we're going to have our own black bags. We're going to be able to take our own blood pressure, check our diabetes, check for cholesterol, and all this. And then the only time you're really going to have to go to the hospital is if it's an emergency. And probably when you get there, it's going to be robotics. So that's my point of view for the future of healthcare.
I also think that we're looking towards a world where they'll be able to create new organs for people who need them, which I think is fantastic.
Someday in the future, an implant and mechanism such as the camera that you're using today, where the eye will, socket will have this artificial lens placed in it and some connection to the brain, sending a signal such as what you do with your natural born eyes and nerve endings.
Nursing has really gotten into the computer field. Like, everything started by the computer. When I was working, which was maybe 20 years ago, there was no computers. We wrote everything down, and now everything is done by computer. And I think it's more efficient.
I think that's kind of like where our technology is going. And that's basically it.
Hello, my name is Brandon Thompson, and I am 18 years old.
My name's Kelly Ullman. I'm 29, and I'm a nursing assistant.
Hi, my name is Kristen Marie. I'm 25 years old.
My name is Giles Bartosh, 58-year-old, pretty good health. I believe the technology of healthcare is probably going to be the doctor is no longer going to do the operations. It's going to be done by a robot, or someone with an iPad just going around, drawing around, and pinpoint a problem in his body, but it can go right to it, and rather than starting with non-invasive. I think it's going to be even more than that. It's going to shoot a little laser in there and it's done.
I believe that the future of healthcare will be a lot different than it is today. It'll be more science fiction-y and more advanced than it is, more robotic and automated. There will be less doctor-to-patient interaction. Like, there will also be something like in the science fiction movies that I've seen recently where a woman was able to do surgery on herself simply because the technology of the time allowed her to get into a tube and just use remote controls to do surgery on herself and heal herself from her injuries, basically.
I think that the future of healthcare based on technology today is going to be that eventually you're going to be able to wear like a life alert device on your wrist or whatever that monitors your vital signs, and your levels, and if like your cholesterol is high or whatever, the doctor can just call you. It sends it to like a database at a hospital, and the doctor can call you if your levels aren't right to come in and get checked out.
I think the future of healthcare will lead to a decrease in jobs because everything will be more automated and less personal. I also think that every house will have scanners in them, and the scanners will see what kind of illness or disease you have, and that they would be able to tell you instead of you going to a doctor's.
Nurse-patient relation is going to go away. It's going to be all paperwork and machines doing everything, and we're really not going to need the nurses and the doctors so much besides telling you when something's wrong.
So Terry, it seems like everybody in that video has a different opinion about where technology might be going as far as healthcare, but there was one gentleman there, Jeffrey, who actually spoke about something that is happening right now. Can you tell us about that?
Well, he was talking about Skype, and I thought that was quite interesting, his perspective on the future of what technology and healthcare can do. Right now, many physicians and nurses and clinicians are using telecommunications and some video conferencing to keep patients out of the hospital.
So is it like is it like that? Hi, Joe, how you feeling? Or is it like a steady, like when you're in the hospital, nurse comes in every 2 hours or hour or whatever? I mean,
Well,
how often do they contact people?
It depends. It depends on the situation. It depends on the patient. It depends on what has happened to the patient. If the patient was just discharged from the hospital and they had surgery, the nurse practitioner or the clinician might telephone the patient every day to check in, to see how they're doing, how they're feeling, did they take their medication, what does the bandage look like after surgery, things like that.
So this is all in an effort to get somebody out of the hospital faster.
That's correct.
And they're going to heal better probably at home, right?
I think people do heal better in their own environment, especially when they have people surrounding them that care about them.
So as far as technological advances in the healthcare industry, do you think that that is going to affect the interpersonal relationship between practitioner and patient, or is it going to affect it at all?
I think that technology will and is having an effect on the relationship between the patient and the clinician in a positive way.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, in a positive way in that technology is a tool, and a tool assists the clinician in getting the job done, in caring for the patient, and monitoring the patient. The clinician uses the tool, initiates the action with the tool, and the relationship with the patient is improved. The patient gets better faster.
So people don't need to fear all of these possible robotics or maybe hands-off type of technology, because it still takes a person to run the technology. And you were saying that it's people that help people, right?
That is correct.
And that's not going to go away.
No, no. People need people to care about them. A robot cannot diagnose a patient. Diagnosis and treatment and caring comes from experience and interaction with that person, and the subtle innuendos and the intuition of the interaction.
So we're not going to lose the personal touch.
I don't see that happening, not in the foreseeable future, and not in our lifetime.
And you were saying that actually the nurse practitioner is going to become a more integral part of the healthcare system, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, with the advent of the Affordable Care Act, the goal is about disease prevention, healthcare promotion, and the nurse practitioner will be used as more of a primary care provider.
Well, that's interesting.
Yes, and so as a primary care provider providing preventative care, education, and education and self-care to the patient so they stay healthy and stay out of the hospital.
So it's going to actually, because sometimes you go to the doctor and it seems kind of impersonal sometimes.
Yeah.
So you're saying that a nurse practitioner would actually be somebody who'd be a little bit more hands-on and care about the person as a person.
Nursing is a discipline that looks at the patient holistically as a whole. Their whole basis of nursing is the interpersonal relationship with the patient, is understanding who that patient is, where they're coming from, understanding what's happening in the home, and many times the problem can be solved just through that dialogue.
Now, you're in the healthcare field, so you kind of understand where the technology is going. Do you think that technology is ever going to harm that relationship between a nurse practitioner and a patient?
I don't see that happening. I see that technology is a good thing in allowing nurse practitioners, nurses, any kind of clinician, the ongoing dialogue and communication.
That is so comforting to hear, and I'm sure a lot of people who are thinking about these technological advances would be comforted to know that they're going to be taken care of still by a person.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Terry. Thank you for
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be back right after this.
Here's the thing about being an unlicensed professional. I could be the guy who drills your teeth and repairs the roof you live under, or even the guy that cuts your hair. And what can you do to stop me? Don't hire unlicensed professionals. First, check with the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs.
Welcome back. You know, if somebody would have asked 20 years ago where we'd be today with technology, they might have gotten some things right. But much of the technology, even the savviest of futurists, would have had difficulty predicting. Our guest today is going to help us look into the future of technology. Her name is Professor Nancy Banowski, and you are chairperson of the Information Technologies Department at County College of Morris, correct?
Correct.
Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Catherine. It's good to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Yeah, I've been at the County College of Morris for almost 12 years now. But before that, I was in research and development at AT&T Bell Laboratories in the communications area.
So you have been around technology for your whole career then?
Pretty much so, yeah.
Wow. We have a video that our producers have put together that they took it out to the street and asked people where they thought technology was going to be in 20 years. Let's have a look at that. It was once thought that the pinnacle of technology was the ability to rewind a VHS tape. Today we transport the capabilities of a computer in the comfort of our pockets, reflecting a renaissance reinforced in the media. The future promises new and exciting advancements in areas such as virtual reality, robotics, and bioimplants. As a technologically advancing society, we draw from the past to look to the future. How will various generations accept these inevitable changes?
Will Finley, I'm 14 years old.
Jim Morgan, I'm 80 years old.
Lynn Wisniewski, and I'll be 32 next month.
I'm Druichi Kenjoku, and I'm just 20.
Roderick Caesar, 25.
My name is Diane Murphy, 54 years old, and I can't imagine where technology will be in 20 years from now.
I think in 20 years, there's going to be like electronic cars or even like a faster way to travel.
As far as 20 more years from now, my sense is that unless something that we can't foresee, and of course something we can't foresee will happen, that people's the sense of community that people may have now will be even more weakened by the reliance on electronic communication. It's ironic that you see everybody talking to people, but they're not with them. And the people they're with, they're not talking to, or they're not even often aware that the people are right in front of them because they almost walked into them. So to me, it's a paradox. I can only hope that technology in 20 years will begin to fulfill the promise of what I would have hoped it had 55 years ago. But to be really honest with you, I don't expect much.
I think we'll get to the stage of having like computer chips actually embedded into our brains where all the advertising can just get soaked in through our eyeballs, and yeah.
I can't really see what it's going to look like. Not at all, no, not at all. I'm not going to pretend like I do, but I think it's going to be beautiful.
I don't know, it's really limitless. The possibilities are endless with, the human brain and us kind of putting ideas together. I think I can't say what it'll look like, I just know it'll be amazing. The fact that we took so much information and condensed it all into an iPhone or an Android, you know what I mean? I think that just shows there's limitless possibilities for technology in 20 years.
But I think younger generations now don't know how to have conversations with like people face to face. And I think that's only getting worse because of technology. We're not going to know how to relate person to person. It's going to all be through our computer chip brains.
The way technology is, I feel like it connects us all. I could be speaking with someone in South Africa, and I think it should be utilized to help other people and not just say, look what I have, look how, cool this is because I'm getting all this stuff. But I think in some way, shape, or form, I could use technology to help people that need it. So.
So we saw that many people there had a concept of what technology might be, but I think it's kind of difficult for the masses to grasp how far technology could possibly take us in the next 20 years.
Sure.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to predict, or any one person to predict, where technology is going to be in 20 years, because technology is in many aspects of our lives today in many different areas, and lots of people are working on different technologies, and we don't know what's going to come next.
Well, it's amazing. We see it's like exponentially increasing the amount of technology coming at us.
Right.
So it almost seems like it's happening in real time, but it's not, is it?
No, it's not.
It takes a long time to develop technology.
Absolutely, yeah. You think of some of the technology that we're seeing today actually existed, and someone invented it decades ago. We were talking earlier about video conferencing and how now we have FaceTime and we have Skype and we can talk to each other remotely through video conferencing, but that technology's been around for many decades.
That's hard to believe. You were saying when you were fresh out of college, you were working for Bell Labs.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened?
Well, when I first went out to interview with them, I interviewed with a group that was working on future technologies, and one of their interview questions was, if you had to invent some technology related to communication, what would it be? And right off the bat I said, I think it would be great if I could see somebody as I was talking to them over the phone. And they said to me, oh, that's been invented. We did that a long time ago. And I was astounded. I was shocked that that was the case. And I didn't understand, well, why don't I have it?
Right.
It just takes a long time to come out, to deploy it, to get people interested in it, to adopt it, to be able to feel comfortable behind that technology.
And when the technology first comes out, typically we find it's very cost prohibitive.
Exactly.
So it doesn't catch on as quickly.
Right, yes.
You were also talking about how we would improve our face-to-face communication with technology.
Right, because if we think about how the current generation, the younger generations communicate, they communicate by text message, social media sites. They don't necessarily call each other on the phone, talk to each other on the phone. So I think as the video conferencing technology improves, the quality of the video that we can send real time improves as we increase bandwidth and reduce costs with that. I think the face-to-face contact will improve, and we'll have that human touch back that I think we've kind of lost along the way.
Do you see it as being even more rich and in-depth than FaceTime already is?
Oh, I absolutely think it's, if you've seen the quality of the videos, it's very, there's a lot of shadow, there's a lot of cutting in and out of the quality. I think as we get some, more quality video where it looks like it's three-dimensional, it will be a good replication of actually sitting in the room with somebody.
So you won't be talking to them on the phone or even texting, but you'll maybe be looking at your phone and just speaking with them like we do with FaceTime, but it'd be more real?
I'm hoping that that's the direction that we'll be able to move to.
Do you think it's kind of affected how people relate to each other in person?
Right. If I look at just the students that come into our classrooms these days, and we hear from employers that students coming out have problems communicating, especially verbally, and we see they're not good at making eye contact, that they're just not comfortable in that environment because they're used to talking to their phones or talking via their phones and not necessarily having long sit-down conversations like we're having here.
But that's not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
I mean,
yeah,
to lose the art of being able to communicate with people.
Exactly.
And have to rely upon an electronic device. I mean, I don't know.
I think,
it's not my generation. I can't understand that.
Right. But if you think about the advances that we've made with this technology, the ability to be able to communicate with people that you weren't able to communicate with before. You think about the old days with telephone, how expensive it was to call somebody. It's a long distance call. I can't stay on too long. Now, there's no concept of long distance call.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know what, Professor, this is a really big topic, and I'd love to talk to you more about it, but we are going to wrap it up for today, and I thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, it was great to be here.
And I'd like to thank all of the guests that joined us today. I'd like to thank Katie Dempsey and Professor William Solomons and Terry Christopher, and of course our guest, Professor Banowski. Thank you so much for joining us on Generations. We look forward to seeing you again, and until then, I'm Catherine Kelly.